We'll let that do that. Well, Sláinte, part 2 of the evening, and welcome anyone who's coming back from the previous session. So thanks again to Matt Healy and Boan Distillery. And now we have Peter Bignell, Belgrove Distillery in Tasmania, Australia, other side of the planet, other side of the time zone, because at the moment we're here at 10:30 here in Belfast. And over there is what, 7:30 in the evening? In the morning, sorry, 7:30 in the morning.
Yes. Yes.
You're up early. You're up early, Peter, and welcome.
Yeah. Well, I've got 2 employees, and they started at 7:30. One's here, the other one's a little bit late by the look of it, or maybe just on time. I'm hearing just coming. New car coming.
Whip them into shape. Don't be late. Don't turn up late. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Brilliant. So there you go. Evening from the guys. Gareth, Will, and Liam's in already. Listen. This is slight change to the norm. Normally I only do one session, but I was off last Wednesday, Peter, and people were being very, very nice to me. They thought I'd done something wrong.
Oh,
no, I hadn't done anything wrong. I was just having my kitchen. I was having my kitchen looked at so I could refit it, and the guy just kept me going a little bit longer, so I actually missed the session. But yeah, look, I want to give a wee shout out for Sláinte series is about saying thank you very much, and you came on board and you got involved last year with the festival, and you sent over some great whiskey. So we were managing to get your oat whiskey, batch 4, I believe, and I still have the remnants, the smallest little bit left.
Yes.
From the actual event itself, and I tell you what, it's just priceless. People will not be aware really of Australian whiskey, and someone said to me the other day, do you know what, we're totting up all these new Irish whiskey distilleries, and we're near. I think we're close to. We're over 30 whiskey distilleries now in Ireland. Who are going to be functioning within the next year at least, and that's a hell of a lot. But on the small island of Tasmania, that's nothing. That's nothing.
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 No, I don't know how many there are here now, but there's over 60 distilleries. I'd say almost everyone except me makes gin. But there are quite a few of them are putting whiskey down. Most of them be putting whiskey away. Yeah,
that's just remarkable. And
we've only got our population here is only 500,000, and 60 distilleries.
So it's just mad. It's just mad. And when people think, people say, "Oh, there's too many Irish whiskey distilleries," or there's too much whiskey. There's just not too much whiskey. That's just bollocks.
No, it's never enough.
But there's never enough. When you look around the world, and lots of different people, lots of different countries are distilling whiskey. Australia have been doing it, and they've been doing it for a long time. So we've got, you've got pedigree in Australia. There's pedigree, whiskey production. And then you've got some guys who are, they're running through 20-year-old whiskey now, at least, isn't it, from Australia? Sullivan Cove, what's that?
Yeah, Sullivan Cove, yeah. Yes.
They're at 20, I think they're at 22 or 23 years old liquid at the moment. So there's definitely pedigree. There's this idea of the distilling, having been done illicitly for as long as there's been, people coming to the island, maybe dragged there or put there or whatever. That there has been this tradition of illicit distilling, distilling going on. Slightly different to your colleagues across the water in New Zealand, who have no rules, no nothing. But you guys have rules, don't you now? There's rules about how to make Australian whiskey, am I right?
Yeah, well, there's not a lot of rules. Fortunately, we're not confined like your Irish pot still whiskey. You've got some very hard and fast rules, which are upsetting a lot of people, I believe. But here, all we've got to do is it's got to be made from a cereal grain mash, and it has to be aged in wooden barrels for at least 2 years, and that's pretty well all the rules.
Good enough to have good rules. And I like the flexibility insofar as that, it's wooden casks. That's a good thing as well. let's think out, outside the box. Let's make sure we can try lots of different types of wood, and also that 2 years. How many people are releasing Australian whiskey at 2 years, or are people waiting? Do they wait the 3, 4? Do they give it more time?
Well, I think that the new distilleries, when they first start up, I'd say pretty well all of them would release on 2 years, but not all. But some hold on. But it's financial constraints. That spend all this money building the distillery, and you want to get onto the market as quick as you can. Yeah. But there certainly are some that'll hold off. I remember one, Overeem's, when they, I think they might be in Ireland too, a bit of Overeem whiskey, but when they came online, they just refused to release anything, even though it was really good, before 5 years was up. But the 2 years, there are some, some of them a bit ordinary, but what they do, they mature them in the little 20-litre casks. And also our climate here is a lot more up and down with the temperature than you guys that have over there. We'll get temperatures in my distillery here. I used to age stuff up in the roof space until work safety got onto me, so I had to pull them all down. But the temperature up there would fluctuate from 47 degrees Celsius on a hot day to down to about 5 or 6 degrees by the early morning, and so the air inside the barrel would expand and create pressure and push whiskey into the wood. And then at night, we cool down, we get a vacuum and pull it back out again. So it's like jigging a tea bag here. Whereas, in a big warehouse, in a country like yours, where very reasonably steady climate, winter and summer might be different, but you just don't get those daily fluctuations in temperature.
You definitely don't get that daily flux, and obviously in a lot of the, a lot of these. Sheds that are being used. Sheds, I mean, Jesus Christ, places, that were keeping bonds, that were keeping a lot of the whiskies in. The temperatures are really, they're not static, but they don't fluctuate up and down very quickly. And I think that's interesting. So we could be looking at, just for the 2 years, say, that might be an equivalent of a 4 or 5 year aging process here, potentially.
That's often spoken about, yes.
Yeah. And I think
it'll end up a slightly different whiskey, but that's good both ways.
Yes, and of course. Well, I think I've had whiskey from all over, and I tend to find that the ones from the hotter climates, particularly the Taiwanese whiskies, they're young, fresh whiskies, but here some of them taste like they've been around for a long time. Some of them taste like, some bourbons are like that similarly. You maybe get that with young bourbons. Sometimes they do, and they kind of come across a little bit older. But not Scotch or Irish. I think, you can tell a young Irish straight off the bat. You can tell a young Irish straight away. But I'm thinking that these ones are slightly different. I mean, how old is the batch 4? How old is this one? Comes in at 59%.
Yeah, it'll be about 3 years. It was a blending of a couple of different barrels. I'd have to look up the records to know, but it wouldn't be any more than 3 years, that one.
Yeah. Again, it's got a lot of body for a 3-year-old whiskey.
And also by using casks that are they've had really good product in them before, where like port sherry bourbon casks, red wine casks, rum casks that are reasonably freshly dumped. Yeah. You'll pull the flavours out of them so much quicker than second, third, fourth fill casks. Those ones just need to wait there 10, 15, 20 years when they keep getting reused. And pretty well everybody here would have their casks, they'd be reshaved and refired, getting back to fresh wood and fresh heat on them. So that certainly speeds things up a fair bit.
Tell me this, and Peter, obviously tell the world here, but what the crack is, oat whiskey, what else do you've got? Oat whiskey, you've got rye whiskey, you've got a couple of different products, don't you?
Yes, I've got an interesting little one here. I'll put my glass out of the way before I knock it down. It's spelt whiskey.
Yep.
So that's made out of the grain, the old-fashioned wheat. These are just a few things. The white rye, the white dog. So that's just 100% rye grain there. And the one I'm on just now, that the oat whiskey. You might have seen it earlier, but oat whiskey batch 5. So you've got the batch 4 there. This only came out yesterday, so it's brand spanking new, that one.
Oh yeah.
So that some of that's heading your way. What's his name? Bart. There's Bart in a whiskey club there. I can't think of his last name. He's ordered some of those.
There's there's some nose to this oat whiskey. I mean, what barrels? So you're using various barrels. This is just various barrels, but what's the process for the oat whiskey? What is the process here?
It's a multi-grain. It's actually 4-grain whiskey. So there's the majority of the grain is oats, but then it's got wheat, rye, and barley in it as well. So some batches I've got the barley malted and some the rye is malted, and then we just blend them all back up again once the barrels are ready. And it's one of the finest whiskies that I've ever had, and is it in my top 100 without a shadow of a doubt, Peter? It's a really unique tasting whiskey, and it wants to be. Do you know what it wants to be? I say it wants to be a Scotch. It does want to be a Scotch, but at the same time, it has the complexity of some really, lovely Irish whiskies as well. It's got it's got a hybrid feel to it. And if this is what is going to be expected from your distillery, it's uniquely Tasmanian. Then if that's the way to look at it. Yeah, yes, well, it's just uniquely me. I think I just love it.
Uniquely you.
I don't like copying other people. I just go my own way, as long as I follow our rules. That it's it's made from a cereal grain and it's been aged for at least 2 years. And in wood, doesn't have to be oak wood, but yes, but I use oak. But I just love it. Love experimenting. I've got lots and lots of stuff. There's another one here. We're getting around to a hopped malt whiskey. So that's actually a distilled IPA. So for those who just who aren't distillers, whiskey is distilled beer. We make beer, but
yes,
with hops in it. But this did actually have the hops. My son has got a brew pub, T-Bone, and every now and again he does a bit of experimenting, and if it doesn't work, then he sends it up to me and I distill it. So we make this hopped malt whiskey, and the beautiful floral notes of the hops come through. And I've got just a peated rye. This did pretty well with Jim Murray Whiskey Bible. Somewhere up behind me there, there's I won the Southern Hemisphere Whiskey of the Year with a peated rye, not this batch, but the previous batch. But if anybody likes smoky whiskies, then the peated rye, that's one thing. But this one here, I might have talked to you about it before. Is that in focus? I can't see.
No, it's out of focus slightly. It's just the light. That's better. Bogan Burnout, heavily peated malt spirit. There you go.
Yeah, so that's not aged yet. It's got a few more months to go, then it'll be officially whiskey here. But that's my attempt at making the heaviest peated, smokiest whiskey in the world. When it was the new make of it was absolutely disgusting. It got that nickname from people who tried it when it was new make, and they said that just smells like burnout rubber at a burnout competition. I presume burnout means the same thing to you guys, does it?
Yes,
people
it
doing
does. Yes. It
does. Bogan. I don't know what you guys call bogans. It's something else. There's
Look, I don't know about bogan. I'm not too sure. I don't know if I would use that in any context.
I don't know how you call them. Almost like delinquent youth who go around.
Oh yeah, we have them. They're called Slicks, Spies, Neds. There's loads of you see of what you would call them.
Yep. Anyway, it's a similar type of thing. I don't know if I'm quite right with the definition, but anyway, that'll do.
There's Peter's asking a good question. What's the story behind you and Cologne Distillery? You're mentioned many times by Brendan. So what happened there? What did you do to Brendan when he was in Australia? What did you do?
Yeah, well, Brendan was working here in Australia, in Sydney, and I don't think he had any intention of anything to do with distilling. And he came down to Tasmania for a bit of holiday, and he called in to see me, and I showed him around the place, and he just fell in love with the idea of going home and giving up his architecture and building a distillery. So I think that
Right.
I was the main influence for him starting up. And we've kept in touch, and he was almost emailing me and texting me, what do I do here, what do I do there? And so I gave him a fair bit of advice along the way. And then I was in London 2 years ago, roughly, and I went over to Isla, and then I got in touch with him. And in fact, I invited him to a conference in London and got him a ticket to the conference in London from the Whiskey Magazine conference, Icons of Whiskey. And anyway, I went over to Ireland, and he showed me around the place, showed me his distillery, and did a bit of a tour around. Ended up down in Dublin, where I flew out of there a couple of days later.
That's brilliant, because I think so. If we have you to blame for probably one of the most, I suppose, yes, it's new, but it's innovative. It's fresh. Cologne Distillery is a breath of fresh air in the Irish whiskey industry. That small, flame fed stills. It's wanting to make sure that it goes back to these types of old mash bills, but at the same time creating its own new kind of mash bills, and pushing the boundaries. So at the moment, producing what they are classifying as legal pot still, and potentially not legal pot still, and we're getting a lovely picture of what he's doing. And if we can credit that to you, that's great. Well, I think that's absolutely brilliant, because it's nice to see that. And you know what? It's a very strange thing. Someone who is in a really good profession. Let's not beat around the bush. Architects are always in demand, and that they're always going to have a good job. But to go directly from architecture straight into into distilling, as it were, it's a random move, bold move. But he seems to be enjoying himself. He really has got this. He's got a twinkle in his eye. He knows what he wants. But he always mentions yourself. He's always got something good to say. But
there's another distillery in Yorkshire, Cooper King Distillery. Okay. Yeah, they started out much the same way. They came down here in Tasmania. They both had corporate type education, going to go into that sort of world, and then came to Tassie and did a bit of a whiskey tour, and it ended up here. And anyhow, they went back home to York and built themselves a distillery.
Wow! So you're just influencing other people around the world, to do what you're doing, which is great. But your distillery isn't like every other distillery, so people need to imagine them, like a storybook. Peter, we could have a story about your distillery, because it's not your average. Here's your 3 stills. Here's your beautiful glass frontage. Here's your barrel. Here's your barrel stacked in a lovely shed. That is not what happens at your distillery, am I right?
That's not what happens at the moment, but I'm a bit scared that things are going to have to change, because WorkSafe, they come around work sites and check out that you're being safe, and they're absolutely terrified of ethanol and ethanol fumes. And yes. They said, you can't have people walking within 3 meters of your barrels, and you need bundling, and you need signage, and you need glass walls, and I don't know what's going to happen. I'm just... Yeah, but this has been going on for about 3 weeks now, so I just don't know where this thing's going to end up. Yeah, we might have to change.
Well, do you know what? I mean, we're all for health and safety. I think everyone wants everyone to be safe and healthy, but it's a working distillery. I mean, that's the way it's a working distillery, and you put your all into it. Yes, and sometimes sometimes the powers that be need to support you in that respect, rather than just being like, here, can I do that? You can't do this. You can't do that. They want to be supportive, and so they should be very supportive of you.
Yes, safety is certainly a very, very important thing. But the amount of extra work they want me to do to increase the safety level by a tiny little bit, and it's just ridiculous the amount we've got to do. But it's legislated, and we have to do it. But I'm hoping there's ways around by proving that we're safe. We've been here 11 years now and haven't had an accident. Nobody's even used as much as a Band-Aid here. Yeah. So, and we're always looking out for things that could be dangerous and improving things. And, I don't know I don't know where we're going. I'm a little bit frustrated about it right at the moment, but there's rules there, and unfortunately we have to follow them. But,
what's your So I mean, at the moment, everything is kind of, you're on the one site at the moment. You know, so everyone's at the. Am I right in saying that everyone's in the one site? So where's your casks? Where's your casks in relation to your stills?
Oh, everywhere.
Yeah.
There's little. It's an old farm sheds, old farm steadings. I don't know what you call them over there, but
Yes.
old stone buildings. And there's a still up one end, and then the old horse stables. Then there's a packaging room next to the still where we put out all the bottles and send them off. And then there's a barrel room in another stall, another barrel room in another stall, and then we got another still a bit further up, and then more barrels a bit further along, and they're all sort of scattered everywhere. Which makes, for the people who come here on tours, they just love it. It's just so random. It's not all
That's
that.
that's what I want people, and I want them in their heads to try and visualize what's going on there, because it just sounds absolutely epic. It just sounds the way it should be in some respects. I mean, don't get wrong. Like I love. We have some aesthetically pleasing distilleries. Like, don't get wrong. We have distilleries here in Ireland, obviously with distilleries in Scotland as well, which are just stunning to look at, absolutely stunning. And we had Matthew on from Boan earlier on. If you go to Boan, beautiful glass frontage, you can see the stills from outside. In fact, you can see the stills from the motorway, and you go inside, and it's a bit of a TARDIS. It's absolutely huge inside. On the outside, it looks a little bit smaller, but huge and very much a production, distillery. Everything's neat. It's got its own space. But I don't see. I mean, I look at some of the very old pictures of distilleries that were on the go. Some of them were very small, very, 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 very cluttered in some respects. I'm actually fond of that. It actually has this whole, it's very romantic, Peter. I think your distillery is what I'm saying. It's a romantic thing. But it's just maybe the way some of us want it to be, imagining it, to be really different and really kind of quirky and, finding wee nooks and things going on there.
That's exactly how it is now. And I get this visitor's book here. Occasionally people will sign that and write comments, and there's people who say this is the best distillery tour, most fun that I've been in all the world. They've been to a lot of distilleries. Quite often get that type of comment. That I'm afraid it might be going to change a bit. But if I can have my way, I'll keep it a little bit like it is now. I must admit, we did get a bit cluttered here a little while ago, and we've tied it all up a bit again now. But we just sort of ran out of space to store all the barrels. But we do the best to try and keep it safe. And if it looks a little bit dangerous, well, that's even safer because people take a bit more care.
True. Have you got much? I'm going to think. Have you got much land? Can you store the barrels underground? Have you got the ability to dig into the earth there and store underground?
Easy. But no, I don't think underground storage is what I want, though, because you get the temperature is too steady then, and it takes a lot longer to mature.
Yeah, we had this conversation with the guys from India, and they were saying that they dig in.
Oh, yes, because they got such a high temperature. And I think I've heard that they lose something like 20-25% angel share. Yeah. They leave it above the ground. So they got to get a bit more stable temperature.
So, I'm just thinking sometimes that, being just a little bit more, savvy about your piece of land and what you could do there and stuff. A lot of people, surely all of our, warehousing is above ground and it's all in racks and, it's all up in the air. But I think interestingly enough, bringing it down into the ground could be good. Flying the flag for Tasmania, of course he is. Should be supported, indeed. Yeah, and you need to be sure, Liam. Pouring a dram at this morning. I don't think Peter's going to be having a wee drink at this time of the morning. He's got work to do. He's got to go and pick up some gas. He's got welding to do.
Oat whiskey. That's breakfast whiskey, isn't it? Rolled oats for breakfast porridge. That's what I'm on oat whiskey at the moment.
Yep. You're just right. Listen, we were very lucky to have you involved in the Whiskey Festival last year, and again, great that you want to come on board this year, which I think is good because I think for me as a whiskey drinker, and as I say, like drinking whiskey from all over, it's just really good to see whiskies from other countries making it around the world, and we know that Scotch whiskey gets everywhere. It's in every pocket. You know, it's in every good town and every good city around the world. You're going to pick up some Scotch, and Irish whiskey, although it's not there yet, probably will be at some point. And coming from the other side of the world, Japanese whiskey seems to be moving around the world very quickly, and has done of late. And now we're starting to see Australian whiskey coming into European markets also. And I think that it'll be nice to see your product hitting the shelves. But I take it sometimes it's to do with quantity. Maybe you don't have.
That's it. Yes.
Yeah. So maybe you don't have enough of it. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. I've got a reasonable stock here. Nothing like some of the bigger ones, of course. But I've got quite a bit of mature whiskey here. But I've got interest in Canada, USA. I've got a small order to go to Japan any day. Got Chinese. I did have quite a big contract to go to China, but that fell through when the COVID hit them. But I've got some new people interested now in China here a few days ago. And then I did have a Scottish importer pretty keen. Then he decided to pull the pin for the while because of the COVID. A bit hard to launch it. And you guys, so Brendan there, he's I'm trying to get myself sorted out to work out what I got for him to some oat and some rye in bulk. So he's going to. He and a few friends are going to do an independent bottling of it.
Yeah, he's. I don't think he's told anyone that. So if he's on tonight, pure which is great, which is perfectly fine. I think that's good. Exclusive information there. No, look, I think he has lots of plans at the moment, but I think it's a great thing, Peter. I think something like that is absolutely brilliant. But you need to have the quantity before you can send around the world. You need to have the quantity. What's the other? I mean, your production level, what's that in relation to the likes of Sullivan Cove, or to the likes of Bakery Hill, or to the likes of what else do we have? Lark. Well, where are you at?
Oh no, I'm quite a bit smaller than any of those. Excuse me, we do about a 200 litre barrel a week. So like the others are doing it, much more than that. Yes. Yeah, not huge amounts, but they do a fair bit more.
Okay, so you're running out a cask a week ish, and then that's not a yearly production rate, is it? You'll be less than that for the year.
Less than that for the year. So although I've got a new still that's got to get installed, but all this work safe thing's going to hold that up a little bit. But yeah, well, we'll end up putting out three barrels a week once this new setup's going.
Brilliant. That'll be good. That'll take you to a different level. What's the community like there? The community that we have in Tasmania, very close knit. There was a fire recently. A lot of people showing support for the distillery there. How did they get on? Yes,
there was a fire in a distillery just up the road from me here that some of you may not have heard about, but the distillery itself got burnt down, and the young bloke that was in the middle of the fire, he got quite badly burnt. In fact, for a start, they thought he wasn't going to live. They might have a week or so and he would die. Then it spread out to 2 weeks and a month, and then they said he was going to be in hospital till September this year, and he's been home a couple of weeks already. So he recovered really, really quickly, fortunately. But the distillery, I think, is well on the way to being rebuilt. Unfortunately, the bond storage was in a separate building, so it was the distillery production facility that got severely damaged, and so basically get pulled out and start again.
That's well, yeah. I mean, God, obviously glad that the wee fella isn't dead and he's recovering. So absolutely, that's good news. It's also good news that the distillery still wants to do it. Wants to go back onto track and get back making whiskey. So
that was a pretty big concern. They had some pretty big stills there that only been, I think the new stills had only been in operation for less than a year. And they started out quite small and then decided, even before they had their first whiskey released, that this is what they wanted to do. So the huge investment, some pretty big stills in there. And unfortunately, it's all gone. But anyway, they had good insurance, and they're starting all over again.
And they were flame fed stills, weren't they?
Yes. Yeah. I know what happened. I don't quite understand why it happens. I think I know why, but it's not up to me to say. But
of course.
The report will eventually come out. Yeah.
No, but here, flame filled still, and there's only so many around the world that are doing that. There's not that many people who are going for the flame fed stills.
Yeah, that might be part of my problem with the WorkSafe people is getting my flame fed stills approved. I don't think they're a problem at all. I think in some ways they're actually safer than an electric still, because they consume any fumes that are in the air, any vapors.
Mm-hmm.
The big problem we have to watch out is we don't have a spill of liquid around. Then we're in big trouble. But it's just the fumes aren't an issue at all. But I've been thinking seriously about it. Got to get some engineers onto it to work out design so to make the flame fed very, very safe.
Yeah, well, I'm sure. Look, I'm sure you'll definitely get that resolved. There was I came across something really funny. I don't know who pointed me in the right direction, but they said that you had met Gordon Ramsay. Now, I thought that was absolute bullshit. I'll be honest. I was like, nah, that's just crap. There's no way Peter Bignell has met Gordon Ramsay. But you did. Gordon Ramsay came to you. Is that what happened?
Well, see that in the background there. Where are we?
Yep. There you go. Unbelievable. Gordon Ramsay.
There we are.
That's brilliant. That's absolutely brilliant. Well, how did that come about? How did that come about? How did Gordon Ramsay come to Tasmania?
He's got a film crew that go out and do looking for interesting stories, and he's got a show called Uncharted, and so he goes to very, very much out of the way places. So we did a little show off at an island off the coast of New Zealand, and they had to climb trees and fight off snakes and catch eels by hand and go diving and things like that. And not in this sterile kitchen where he abuses everybody. It's quite a different show. Yeah, Uncharted. And his mind has heard about me with my the holy shit rye whiskey. So there was a rye whiskey I smoked by burning sheep dung instead of peat. So he heard about that, and then so the guys that run his show for him, they got in touch with me. He said, "Yeah, can we bring him down and do a show there? And can you give him a dirty job?" I said, "Yeah, easily." So, but it took a wheelbarrow and a shovel down to the shearing shed where my sheep spend a bit of time in there, and underneath the floors, all the dried shit. And so he had to shovel all the shit into the barrow and wheel it up and into the smoker. And
you made Gordon Ramsay shovel shit.
Yes,
that's unfrickin'. Do you know what? Frickin' fair play to you, Peter. Fair frickin' play to you. That's unbelievable. And I don't know, but I mean, look, he's a Glaswegian. Gordon Ramsay's Glaswegian. Yeah. He's a good guy. He's good banter. Like, I know he comes across a bit of an asshole sometimes, but he's actually good crack. There's no doubt he's good crack. I'm sure he would appreciate it, actually, what you were doing down there. But yeah, for that alone, you have legendary status. The fact that you turned Brendan Carty into a distiller, 1. 2, you've met Gordon Ramsay. You could give up. You could hang your hat somewhere now. That's you done. You've done it. You've done everything you had to do in life.
Yeah, I just sometimes think, how the hell did I get where I did? I just go with the flow, let things happen, and just being. I think it's probably my creative mind. I've got a science mind and a creative mind that they're both, and by having that double sort of brain, it helps a lot. I've got a bad habit of never finishing a project, so I'll start on something and never quite finish it. But anyway, I'll get it to a stage where I love it. I love it where we're up to, and I want to do something else now. So off I go and do something else. So right at the moment, I'm making whiskey, but I get one variety of whiskey done. It's good. We win a few awards with it, and I think, right, okay, done that, on to something else. And every now and again I turn around and head back to my old projects again. And then find new ones, and
there's a lot of distilleries out there, lots of distilleries who focus on one spirit, and some of the best distilleries in the world, one style, and here Bushmills would be a prime example of that, one style. Really, let's be honest. We've got the blends, and we can talk about that, but the one style, and yet mixing it up with the casks, we get some great products. And yet there's you sitting there with you've showed me 7, I think, if I counted that right, 7 or 8 different styles that you just showed me. You know?
Yeah, there's a few more than that even. So yeah.
So that in itself is super impressive.
Yeah,
Mark,
I just get bored making the one style all the time. You know, I'd get
well,
to
do you know
up
what?
the stage where we can't. Yeah, we can maybe improve a tiny bit, and it gets to a stage where no, that's it. We can't. It's getting too hard to go anymore. So
it's like a chocolate factory, though. Do you know what I mean? It's like, a chocolate factory that only specialises in the one chocolate can be a wee bit boring. Like, do you know what I mean?
yes,
A chocolate factory that has like loads and loads of different types of chocolate sweets. Oh, here, wow, you know what I mean? You're not gonna be bored of it. I'm gonna keep coming back. So I'm gonna keep coming back to Belgrove month after month to look for the next one, to taste the next one. You're going to garner some following just for that alone. It's a little bit like some people having these single cask, offerings. Well, that's what you've got really. You've got these single cask, or maybe a slightly larger production run, but that's really all about that's what it is. And they're all different. They're all unique. And moving into different batches. So the oak whiskey's on batch 5, as you said. So you're still thinking, my oat whiskey is really good. Got to keep at that. Let's go into another batch run. Mark's got a good question though. How does the TASI temperature variations affect the fermentation, and how much impact does it have on the flavour profiles of your whiskey, if any?
Yeah, certainly the temperature. Summer, winter temperatures affect it. We got vats now that are 2,000 litres and wooden vats, so the fluctuating temperature on a daily basis doesn't really make much difference at all with that size vat. We don't have temperature control in there, except if it in the summertime they can sometimes get a little bit too hot, so we've got a cooling coil in there. We can cool them down again, but I not too fussed with trying to keep the fermentation's all constant. But yeah, there certainly does. They run a lot faster in the summer than they do in the winter time. But the bigger vats now that we've gone onto those, that they do tend to run a little bit more even. We used to do 1,000-litre ones in those plastic tanks with the metal frames around them, the IBCs we call them.
Yes.
And they're a bit more susceptible to hot and cold. But these big wooden vats now, they're 2,000-litre big barrels that they were old wine vats. And yeah, they're much more stable than those. But the only temperature control we need is just to stop them overheating sometimes.
And where'd you get? Was there a local winery that you got them from?
On the mainland of Australia. I'm on the little island of Tasmania, who don't realise, just down the southeast corner of Australia. But yeah, South Australia, which is the middle of Australia, and the southern end of the southern part of the middle of Australia, South Australia. That's big wine
country, is it?
Sorry.
Shiraz country.
Yeah. Well, winemaking country. Yes. Winemaking and they used to do a lot of brandy in that area as well. But these old wooden vats there that they've stored wine in for hundreds of years, or I think 120 years. These ones I've got, and eventually they're not suitable for wine anymore, and then they sell them off or chuck them outside. And I've got 4 of them now, so I'll get them here. And one out of the 4 was small enough to squeeze in through the door of the distillery, but all the other ones I had to actually pull them to pieces and get them sent down flat packed, and then put them together once I got them inside. Which is a bit of fun, putting them back together.
You could have made an extension onto the shed.
Yeah, the one I'm in now is a big stone shed, so I didn't want to alter that. Big thick stone walls. And the door wasn't big enough to get the 3 of the vats in. Yeah. But it was fun putting the ball back together again anyway. It's like a deck of cards. You're standing all the staves up, and then all of a sudden one falls, and then the next one falls, and they'll fall down again. And it's not like a little barrel where you can sort of hold everything.
No.
These things are huge. Yeah.
Tell me this though, Peter. You don't just make whiskey. You enjoy drinking whiskey. So you have various whiskey bottles behind you. I can see some Japanese stuff above your right hand side. Yeah, I can see that. And so do you take inspiration from any other whiskies out there? Is it whiskey inspiration, or is it just for personal taste and really just because you want to drink and have a bit of crack?
It's just for me to to taste and train my taste buds to sort of know what's good and what's not good, and all the different styles of things, and just to know what whiskey is. It's self-education, and it's all tax deductible too, business expense, which is great.
Yes,
A few more up there. Oh, the light's probably not quite so good.
No, you've got a great collection.
Yep.
And the thing is, you're dipping in and you're having a wee taste of it all. So it's not. These are open bottles. That's not your retirement fund there. They're open bottles and you're drinking.
No, everything's open. Yes.
Yeah, you're spot on. So you've got. I met Brendan. Not Brendan Carty, different Brendan. So you've got two guys working down there as well. People they're learning from you just now, Peter, because I think we'd had this conversation before, which is I'm really intrigued, about people who they have a craft, and you have a craft and you have this ability to make your whiskies, but you want to see that craft being passed on to the new generation. So do you have people who want to come in there? Do you have people who want to, to help you run Belgrove, make it a global success, even though it maybe doesn't have that production run yet, that maybe it gets, longevity, that it's got longer to go.
Yes, yeah. Well, there's sort of two lots of people we're talking about there. Some I just educate. I used to have a program where the backpackers used to come to Australia, from the UK and Europe and places like that. They used to come down here, and if they worked for 3 months in a rural area, then they could extend their visa for another year. It's pretty hard to get into Australia and stay here other than just a tourist. So if they worked in the rural area, so this was a rural area here. We grow our own grain, and so that qualified. And so they'd come here for 3 months, and I'd basically train them up. I don't know why I did it really. Because by the it took a lot of my time in 3 months to show them how to do everything and be safe, of course, as well. And then the 3 months had come up, and off they go somewhere else. And I ran through quite a few like that. A few of those actually ended up back in the whiskey industry again, which I'm sort of thankful that happened. This one of the guys who was working in here is in Milroy's in London now, works in the bar there, and another guy who was here, he went away for a while and came back and is working at Sullivan's Cove. Oh, he was. No, that's right. He's moved on again from Sullivan's Cove now. But yeah, there's a few of them that ended up back in the industry again. But then I do have investors from time to time who come to me and say, "Oh, we want to invest in the business." But I just love doing everything myself. Very much hands-on. But I am now seriously considering.
Well, I think the investment opportunity now is to make sure that you've got, you've got those rack houses, that you've got those, kind of storage facilities that you're going to need going forward. The more you produce, so you're probably going to need investment in that respect. But I think I think that's very commendable. Supporting young people coming through and for their own selfish reasons they wanted to stay in Australia, no doubt, but and maybe taking advantage of the situation. But such a great thing for you to impart any knowledge. I just think it's great. I genuinely do. I think it's a lovely thing. I think there's a lot of people out there. In fact, I know lots of people who would love to be in the industry, and they'll never get in the industry. They'll never have that opportunity. Never get there. You know what I mean? And for those that are very lucky to get into the industry, to work within it, to gain hands-on practical experience, it's invaluable. There's a lot of people who just can't break into that. So the fact that you've given some to so many people already. What's the question that popped on the screen there, which is, what is your favourite Irish whiskey? Apart from Cologne, you're not allowed to say Cologne. Do you know what I mean? But what's your favourite? Stephen wants to know what your favourite Irish whiskey is.
I can tell you what my least favourite one is, but I better not.
Well, you can say that if you really want to offend someone, you can.
Oh dear. Crikey, there's so many. My favourite changes from day to day. People say, "What's your favourite whiskey?" Well, I don't have one. In the morning it might be one, in the afternoon it's something else.
No, I think you're spot on there, because I would answer very similar. I don't have a favourite anymore. It's it's about genuinely is about the amount of whiskies, and you continuously taste them to get a better idea, a better understanding, and then you may prefer one more than the other the next day, or even the same day, depending on when you're drinking it. You know, this should be easier to answer though. So, what's your favourite mash bill?
Well, actually, right, just even now and again, it's just a straight single malt whiskey mash bill. They're just straight malted barley. Now, the smells that come out of there are just beautiful. But if I'm sure that if I was making single malt whiskey all the time, my favourite one would be my sour mash rye whiskey. It's just that, I love to be different. Love tasting, smelling, doing different things all the time. And so when we occasionally do it, just a single malt mash, it is so interesting, so different that I just love it. And distilling it, I love it because it's just so different. But it's either that and the just the standard rye. The way we get this sour mashing, we get a wild ferment happening. We do add commercial yeast as well, but we do get a fair bit of wild ferment happening in there. And when that's on the second or third day of fermentation, the smell out of that's just magnificent. There's beautiful fruity notes. And so between the sour mash rye and the single malt, between those, they're just lovely extremes of flavours, and that's what I love. Or the smells more than anything. Yep.
I think I think that's very honest. I think Stephen's question was a wee bit harder, to answer. I think that's spot on with your mash bill answer. Tell me this. This idea of having multiple or different variants, and they are all different variants. So it's not like it's not like we're looking at a single malt and we're just looking at cask expressions. We're looking at variants of your, I suppose, your concoctions. You didn't go and look in a book and think to myself, I'm going to copy X, Y, and Z. These are all your kind of tried and tested. You're getting there, you're experimenting. This is something which is unique. I think this is, for me, it really is. And I know I was joking maybe about the Willy Wonka thing, and someone's mentioned it, Michael mentioned it, but it really is though. You come across as quite an eccentric, scientist who has decided that science is no longer important. What is important is making whiskey, and that you're going to, do everything you can within your own power to create some good whiskey. And I think that's, it's a really wizard kind of thing. It's like, it's no longer science. It's magical. It's beautiful, isn't it? We're now on. We're now on a mission to create some really good whiskey. You're having fun doing it, Peter. There's no doubt you're having fun.
Oh yeah, it's got to be fun. I've been called the Willy Wonka of whiskey.
Yeah, that's what someone's saying here. Well,
there we go. Yes.
Yeah, but it is. You are. For most of us, I'm sure we're very jealous. The position that you're in, you're having some fun. You're creating some good stuff. You've meeting Gordon Ramsay, unbelievable. You've generally had an interesting time. The family, I take it, the family must be really supportive. Family must be there, just sitting back, applauding what you're doing. They must be very, very supportive. Yeah. They gave me a bit of grief at one stage when I was going to smoke the malt with sheep shit, and they said, "No, don't dare do that. Don't dare do that. You'll ruin your reputation." But no, it didn't. No, I didn't take any notice of it, so I went and did it anyway. Listen, one of the things, actually, Peter's just put the message up there. But one of the things about bringing you to Belfast Whisky Week is to bring Tasmanian whiskey to Belfast, and to bring, we want people from all around the world to come to Belfast and get involved with the festival. That's a fact. But I suppose this works in two ways. The more we talk about Belgrove Distillery, the more we talk about Tasmanian whiskey and the fact that there's over 60 distilleries, and at some point, there's going to be a shed load of whiskey available for people to go and sample in, Tasmania alone, let alone the rest of Australia. That it works two ways. This festival proclaims to be about Belfast, and it is. It's Belfast Whisky Week. but it's a worldwide festival at the moment. It's a worldwide festival where lots of people from around the world are getting involved. So we have participants from Australia. We have participants from Singapore across the way, and Canada and America, South America, parts of Europe. So it's a worldwide event, and the more we can talk about Belgrove, the more we can talk about Tasmania, we want people to visit. So at some point when the corridors open up and people are allowed to go because they've been vaccinated 100 times and they're okay,
Yes.
that they can go and visit. They can go and visit all these different places.
It's a good place to come. It's a good place to come to at the moment if you're allowed to, because we've got no COVID here. I heard on the news this morning that it's been 339 days since we last had a COVID case in Tasmania.
Unbelievable. So I mean, if I could pack my bags just now and head on over, I would. I most certainly would. If there was a job for me, I'd be there, Peter. I'd be there in a heartbeat. So he says, let's get a plane. Everyone jump on the plane. Let's all go to Tasmania. Is there a COVID edition of the Kissing a Stranger's Brandy? Yes. Fennel, he's away to get it. It's fed fast. Fennel, it's good that you came back in. You were getting a bit of a ribbon about Fiona a minute ago on the other show. What have you got? So yes, he said, is there a COVID edition of the Kissing a Stranger's Brandy?
Yeah, okay. Well, this one here came out before the COVID. So
kissing a stranger. Yeah.
We might have, if it's COVID edition, we might have to triple distill it to be safe. But if for those who don't know what the Kissing a Stranger is, a few years ago there was a big wine tasting event in Sydney that was from natural winemakers that they don't use commercial yeasts, and they look after their land. They're biodynamic, organic, etc. And a lot of my ethics are much the same. So I got invited to their event to show off my whiskies. And I pointed out to them that most of the wine that went to that event would actually be tipped out and spat out, because if you want to go and taste 50, 60 different wines, then you don't drink very much of it at all. And most of it gets tipped out into the spittoons. And so we organised the next year, went up there to collect all those spittoons, and we got 600 litres. And then we took them to a little distillery right near the event, instead of wasting fuel to cart it all the way back to Tasmania, and we distilled it, took it back the next year to sold it back to the people that spat it out the year before. It was just a fundraising thing. We raised some money for an Aboriginal community, and but then we did it the next year, and we got 500 litres the next year. The people must have been either drunk a little bit more, or the people were a little bit lighter with their pores. And then there was another event in Paris, in France, that very, very similar event, and they invited me over to Paris to do the same thing again there. And we got another litres from an event in Paris, and it was a bit hard to find a distillery over there that was prepared to put these spit wines through their still, but eventually found one down in Lyon, about 600 kilometres south of Paris, and carted it all down there and distilled it. So we ended up with French Kissing a Stranger from there. But I just love doing fun things like that, and it's not really set out to create attention, but they do. I had interviews all around the world about that Kissing a Stranger one. It really does cause like a fuss, because I think for the layperson, Peter, will be going, I'm not drinking someone else's spat out. I ain't doing that. Well,
it goes to a distilling process. So you take all of that and you reconstitute it back into high-end alcohol, high-end ABVs, and take it from there, don't you? You go
well, it gets double distilled.
You can distill a lot of things. I'm not sure what you can't distill specifically, but you can distill a lot of things. Yes.
Yeah, well, I've been distilling. We'd had some nasty bushfires down here, a few summers ago, and in our grape growing areas, the vines, the grapes all got smoke contaminated, and so a lot of the vineyards didn't even pick their grapes, because there was just wine made from smoke tainted grapes is terrible stuff. Mm-hmm. And so I said to one of the wineries that I know, I said, oh, how about making some wine with it, and I'll distill it, and we'll turn it into a slightly smoky brandy. And it's tasting pretty good. And I did that two years ago, and then last year there's some people up in New South Wales they did the same, and then I did a bit of research and found out that people have been doing it in California for a few years earlier than that. But it's just a waste product that was otherwise going to get tipped out, and I just love doing that. I just hate waste.
Because that's not the same as the fire damage there is natural fire damage to a natural crop. Yes. So it's not it's not like fire damage to a house, and there's plastics and there's metals and there's all these poisonous gases. We're talking about natural fire. So actually, really,
just eucalypt forest and grasslands that are burning. Yes, not factories burning down.
No. So interesting enough, that is an interesting byproduct of a natural disaster. Interesting. Wow, I'd like to try that. I think that'd be my kind of smoky brandy.
Yes, it's only very gently smoked, but it is a tiny hint of it in there.
I wonder. I would. Do you know what I really like? There's a place over in Scotland, and they have it's like fruit wines. I like fruit wines, so strawberry wine or hedgerow wines. I like that kind of stuff. I'd be interested smoked, so burnt strawberries. Back in there, you could create that for me. We'll just burn some.
A few years ago, before I got into distilling, I did grow a lot of strawberries. I had a strawberry runner nursery, just growing the plants, which I'd sell all around Australia to commercial fruit growers. But sometimes parts of the year we used to have a massive amount of fruit, and people who worked for me, they'd have strawberry fights. There were that many strawberries about, and that which could have done it back in those days. But I don't know. I'm just over strawberries, really. I've tasted wines made out of strawberries, and I'm just over it.
Over the strawberries, I do. I mean, I like strawberry wine. I'll be honest, but there's something about those red fruits, strawberries, raspberries, cherries.
Yeah, someone I know made a bit of used some of my strawberries, and they did a strawberry eau de vie. They fermented it and distilled it. Oh, no, didn't like it at all.
Well, listen, Peter, you've got a long day ahead of you, and also, we are looking forward to seeing you at the festival. And you know what? We don't know in what guise we're going to see you at the festival. We haven't decided that yet. But what we do know is, if we can't physically get you on a plane to Belfast, we're going to live stream from Tasmania. So we're going to do some live streaming from the distillery. And look, it will be nice to try as many of those products as we can. I'm sure there's people on here who will really want to try, lots of different things. And look, I genuinely want to say thank you very much to Sláinte for coming on. And listen, I'm going to finish off I went actually when I was sipping away there. I had the oats, but then I realised that was all I had. So I moved on to a Ben Riach that I had there as well, Scottish whiskey. So I'm just going to go back just to the oats just now, just to say thank you. Okay. Oh, he's away. He's gone. Oh, he's way away back. Yes. What's that one? The 17-year-old. Okay, here. This is
17 years. Yep.
This is one here. This is a 2008 peated port cask, single cask. It's good stuff.
Yep.
It's good stuff.
That's only the outer. I don't know where the bottle is. Probably up there behind me somewhere.
Probably drunk. So listen, thank you very much, Peter. And listen, thanks very much for everyone who stayed on late tonight. Excellent.
Yep. Thank you very much for having me on. This is my breakfast. Cheers.
Brilliant.